rev up your engines. Today's question comes from Joey M. And Joey M says, what's up with muscle cars these days? Is it the death of the V8? I see all kinds of 6 cylinders going where they used to have V8s. What's up? Well, Joey, that's a very good question, because we're at a rather strange part in history when it comes to muscle cars. There are some left with V8s with insane horsepower, but at the same time, the V8s are really being phased out in most cars. Who knows? It might be like in the Road Warrior movie. These could be the last of the great V8s. The original muscle car was a Pontiac GTO, and it put out 325 horsepower. And it started out with a list price of $2,800. When I was young, I knew guys who had them. They were screaming cars. They were always doing burnouts, tremendous gas hogs, and they handled like boats. I mean, their handling was horrendous. But they were really fast in a straight line. Now today, you take a Dodge Challenger. That's got 797 horsepower. It lists at $58,995 for that horsepower. Kind of against the original idea of a muscle car that was a car that young people could afford and then drive like maniacs. Now both the Dodge and the GM engines, hey, they're still pushrod engines like the original muscle cars. Giant pushrod V8s that do have a rather unique sound. But with modern technology going way beyond the 68 Cougar, most manufacturers going for a V6 design. Take the original muscle car, 64 GTO. That thing put out 325 horsepower with a V8. But take a modern V6 engine like in the Nissan GT-R V6, in a vehicle that's much lighter than that big, heavy GTO was. That's more than enough horsepower that any normal person needs. Back in the day, people were driving big, heavy vehicles. They put bigger engines so they could zoom around faster. You could get a 4-cylinder engine today that would run circles around a GTO. And with all the government regulations all over the world about pollution, gas mileage, hey, it was only a matter of time then most of the V8 engines are going to start to be retired because they're just not as efficient. And let's face it, do you really need 797 horsepower? I've driven a 2013 Shelby Cobra. It had like 667 horsepower, and it was insane. That thing was dangerous to be driving on the street. But, I mean, do you really need that kind of insane, massive horsepower for driving around on the street? Years ago, even the Formula One race cars, they went from V8s to V6s. They have regulations. They want to make it look like they care about the ecology of the planet, so they don't want these big gas-guzzling V8s, so they're going to these V6s. Then they can, of course, sell that V6 engine idea to the public in regular cars, which in itself is kind of a laugh, because the V6 engines they run in those race cars, they really have nothing to do with the ones you buy on the street. It's just the sales gimmick that they're pulling on that one. And when it comes to modern muscle cars and V8 engines, they're kind of like the top of the mountain and going towards the bottom really fast. Insane horsepower, more than they ever had, but they're in very expensive vehicles that really the average kid isn't going to be able to afford. And with the gas mileage that they get, most people kind of just walk from something like that today. I mean, there's always a market for any type of car. It's a big planet, you know? There's that guy Koenigsegg, and he makes cars that cost millions of dollars, and he claims they're the fastest cars in the world. There's always going to be a market for really rich people that want to buy one of those things. And I'm sure there's plenty of guys my age who made millions over their decades of living on the planet and working. They think, oh, I'm going to go buy a $120,000 Corvette, or I'll throw down 50, 60 grand for a Hellcat engine that's got almost 800 horsepower. I'm sure there's always going to be somewhat of a market for that. But for the public, hey, they're phasing in V6 engines. That's just the way that it's going to be. And I mean, they do put out a lot of horsepower. You get in one of those that's got a V6 engine with twin turbos. I mean, those things have plenty enough power for anybody who wants to drive fast. And really, the big V8 muscle car engine, that's a dinosaur design. design. Pushrod engines. Heck, even the Mustang V8s went to overhead cams on their muscle car Mustangs. They got away from pushrod engines, but if you're a purist and you're into heavy-duty muscle cars, I mean, you still got the Dodge and the GM big block V8 pushrod engines that can put out insane horsepower. But they certainly aren't the muscle cars of the past, where anybody could buy one, soup it up, drive around like a maniac. Now they do handle a lot better, let me tell you. Back in the 60s, I mean, it's amazing that guys like me are still alive. I know a lot of guys that didn't make it through. They wrapped them around trees, especially up north where it snows in the winter. And you got this insane horsepower on the rear wheels. With rear wheel drive, and they spun around all the time, smashing into telephone poles. Thinking about getting yourself a V8 muscle car and you got a lot of money? You can still buy a brand new one. Or you go the other way and go retro. Go buy a 60s or 70s muscle car and get one that's been all done over and fixed up. A lot of guys do that now because they hold their value. Now, that's just how those things go. You buy a brand new one, their value, especially the Dodges, they plummet quickly. But the old ones, they don't. So aside from a limited amount of people that are going to afford a modern day V8 muscle car, it pretty much is the death of the V8 muscle car as times go on. And really, for the safety of everybody driving on the roads these days, that's probably a good thing. And since this is the Thursday segment where I answer a viewer's question, place your own question on the YouTube comments below, and I'll pick the best ones to make a single video to answer your questions. And where else can you find a guy with 50 years experience of fixing cars to answer your own question with a video? So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.